Hi guys and welcome to HTP Storytime. Tonight we will continue our reading of the second chapter of A Casebook for Murder by Colin Wilson. This episode I take you on a journey to the Tyburn Gallows to meet Sarah Malcom, a triple murderer. Perhaps on the way there we shall learn about the dissection of prisoners and other punishments meted out to the unfortunates of Elizabethan England. It is true that there is nothing in this record that would distinguish a modern criminal, but for the poor of his time, and that would be about 95% of Englishmen, he was a man who had done what they all dreamed of doing, taking what society would not give them. Dick Turpin never became the subject of one of Hogarth's engravings, perhaps because his trial and execution took place at York, but he engraved the portrait of an equally celebrated criminal, Sarah Malcom, accused of a treble murder committed in the course of a robbery. She was a middle-class girl whose father wasted the family's goods, so that she was eventually obliged to become a laundress. She decided to rob one of her customers, an old lady of 80 called Duncombe. When friends of Miss Duncombe came to tea on the afternoon of Sunday the 4th of February 1773, they found that Mrs. Duncombe and a female servant named Harrison had been strangled, while a servant girl of 17 was in bed with her throat cut. As Miss Duncombe's char, Sarah Malcom came under suspicion, and money was found in her room, as well as a silver tankard stained with blood. She claimed that the actual murderers were two brothers called Alexander and a woman named Tracy. When the brothers heard of the charge, they presented themselves to the magistrate and declared that they were innocent. No doubt they were, for they were not tried with Sarah Malcom, and this was in a period when the law preferred to hang a dozen innocent people rather than let one guilty one escape. After her execution, her corpse was dissected and the skeleton presented to the Botanic Gardens at Cambridge, where, said a writer at the end of the century, it remains to this day. Hogarth was so interested in the attractive murderess, who was only 22 when she was executed, that he made two portraits of her. The custom of handing over criminals for dissection to a barber surgeon became law in 1752. For some odd reason, this seemed to worry criminals more than the thought of being hanged. It was one of the many measures the government considered to try to reduce crime, upon the false hypothesis that a sufficient cruel punishment would act as a deterrent. Another suggestion was to torture criminals before hanging them, breaking them on the wheel or burning them with hot irons, but this was rejected. There would be too many criminals to do this efficiently, of course. But there were other ideas that seemed more practicable. For example, to leave bodies rotting on the gibbet until they become skeletons, to hang them in irons, that is, in a kind of iron cage, that prevent the corpse from disintegrating too quickly. Someone suggested that it would be a good idea to hang living malefactors in irons and allow them to starve to death. This idea was rejected because the cries might upset people, for sure. There was even a custom of dumping the body on the doorstep of the person he had wronged to demonstrate that the law had carried out the sentence. If one had travelled around England after 1752, one would have found many good views spoilt by the gibbet with its corpse in irons. Hilltops that could be seen from afar were selected as suitable spots to deter the maximum number of criminals. Hanging in irons went out of fashion mainly because it was too expensive, as the suit might cost £75 and the gibbet had to be coated with lead to prevent relatives of the dead man from burning it down. Now again, guys, this all has to be taken with a grain of salt. This is a book from 1969, and it's not like they're linking references in this book. So let's take this with a pinch of salt. Let's just read that last sentence again. The gibbet had to be coated with lead to prevent relatives of the dead man from burning it down. Yeah. The most famous of English gallows was the one at Tyburn. It was a few yards to the west of Marble Arch, on the banks of a stream, the Tyburn, that flowed from Hampstead down to the Thames. Thames. It now runs underground for most of its length. In the time of Henry VIII, the gallows was simply a crossbeam supported on 2 trees. Queen Elizabeth had it changed to a triangle of beams supported on 3 uprights. As many as 10 offenders at a time could be hanged on each beam, and the sight of 30 bodies swaying in the wind must have been an impressive sight. The phrase Gala Day is derived from Gallows Day, gala being the Anglo-Saxon for gallows. The hanging of notorious criminals was often the occasion for a public holiday, with a great deal of drunken merrymaking. England adopted hanging mainly because beheading large numbers of criminals was impracticable. Before the time of Alfred the Great, which was about 850 AD, criminals were often boiled alive. Women were drowned in a special pit. This was given up because it was too much trouble, and an attempt to introduce the guillotines in Halifax in the first half of the 17th century never caught on in the rest of the country.